Welcome back to After Dinner Leadership. I need to be a little careful not to cause offence, but I think I'm safe to say that most of our guests have been over 30 years old. Ryan and I thought it'd be really nice to have a guest that is under 30 who's leading in business. And I'm delighted to welcome to After Dinner Leadership Jared Keir, who is the founder of Fellow Humans. And he will tell you about that organisation. If you are considering starting your own business, this is an episode to listen to. He will talk about his ups and downs in creating and selling businesses and designing a business that's focused on impact, not just profit. Enjoy. Welcome, Jared, to the After Dinner Leadership podcast.
Good to be here. Honestly, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, you're the founder of Fellow Humans, which is a great title, a great name. Well done on that front. What does it mean?
What does it mean? Well, Fellow Humans, essentially a year ago, I was on a couch in Morocco and I thought to myself, I want to make new friends. I want to meet new people where I live in Glasgow. And I just couldn't really find anything that was very wholesome, very cool. And it was just about connecting people. And so
Right.
I thought of a name. Fellow Humans was the name that I came up with because I think it, on its simplest form, it's just humans connecting with humans.
Yes.
And I started organizing meetups just as a passion project for people to make friends. And it sort of has become something much bigger than I thought it would ever be. So.
Great. Well, congratulations on that. What a great idea. And I want to develop that some more for sure. Let me ask you just a few questions though. We've got this imaginary dinner table in front of us here, and I'd love to find out what food reminds you of your childhood.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so a few days ago, I actually attempted to reignite some of my childhood. I attempted to make a trifle,
Okay.
So my mum's English, my dad's Scottish. I was born in England actually, but I've lived my whole life here in Scotland.
Yes.
And hence why my accent's Glaswegian. I'm not making it up. But yeah, I attempted to make a trifle a few days ago, and let's just say my mum can make a better trifle. But I honestly think a trifle and beside that, avocado on toast. I know that's kind of an interesting combination,
Okay. Yeah.
But my mum's very healthy. I was brought up vegan for about 20 years, so
Right.
we always had avocados and lying about, and we would make guacamole and things. Yeah.
Very nice. What fruit would the trifle be? What is it?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I would go for
raspberry?
strawberries. Yeah.
Strawberry. Okay. All right.
Strawberries.
Fair choice. I'd prefer raspberry base, but that's
okay. We can disagree on that. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. And would you consider that you had a mentor figure of any sort during your late teenage years, early 20s?
Yeah.
Do you have one?
I would say, I would love to say my parents, but they kind of grew up sort of just with 9-to-5 jobs. And I guess my mum she started her own business, later on in life in her 30s, late 30s. Yeah. And so I think I saw her as someone in business that maybe tried to do something themselves and went against the grain. But I would say in terms of people that I look up to, I honestly think that just a lot of people where I live, there's a few of my friends' parents that had for years that they'd chosen to do something that maybe wasn't popular, that a lot of people didn't really support, but they were passionate about it. And I think I just thought that was admirable. And so I looked to them, and it was funny, sometimes, when I was older, when I was 15 or something, and, they were doing okay, maybe earning the same amount and reaching the same goals as people that were employed. But as I was in my early 20s, they started to, sell their businesses and also just impact a lot more people and people were surprised by it. And I think I looked at that and thought, wow, like for years they'd been on the grind and they'd been going and not a lot of people believed in them. And and now they've made it possible. And I think that's kind of inspired me to follow the path of building businesses and selling them, and really chasing impact rather than money.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm pleased that you've got those inspiring stories behind you. So you have sold two businesses already, and you've turned a passion project into a business.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sorry.
I've sold one business. The other
Okay,
one,
sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
sold one business when I was 21. I think I was 21. I started a hot chocolate brand in my
Yeah.
mum's kitchen. I basically lived in Switzerland for a while, and I realized, because I've been brought up vegan, that there was no plant-based good hot chocolate alternatives. So I came home, looked in the supermarkets, couldn't find anything, and then thought, well, no one else is doing it, so I might as well try it. Had no idea what I was doing. Started in my mum's kitchen and was there for about eight months. Basically slept in the kitchen, and we made it all by hand, and then grew that, and sold that. I did that for 2 years and sold it, and then I started a marketing agency the year later, and I sort of just moved on from that. I didn't really see the point in selling it because
Sure.
clients had came, it comes and goes, and so yeah. And then last January last year, I started Fellow Humans, and that was originally a passion project, and now it's sort of taken off, and I honestly can't believe how it's doing now. But I think it's because I chase impact. I don't chase notes and
Go on
coins.
then. What does that mean? What does chasing impact mean?
Well, I think I started off like everything. I started the hot chocolate off not because I wanted to make loads of money, but because I really just saw that there was a need, and I wanted a platform to make an impact, to make a positive
Right.
impact on people. And I thought, yeah, I can make a good impact on people, individually. But if I have a brand, if I have an organization, then that can really make a difference. And so with Fellow
Yes.
Humans, I didn't start it because I was like, I'm going to run events and make loads of money off the events. I started it because I really, really firmly believe that the more connected we are, the more happy we are. And the longest study ever done on humans, which is the Harvard study of adult development, it's been going on for 70 years. It shows, they studied people for 70 years. Every year they took medical scans, brain scans, interviewed their families, looked at their health, and they found that the most significant finding was that the thing that makes people the happiest, the healthiest, and live the longest is the quality of the connections they have with the people around about them. And I
Yes.
just saw a need. I thought we need, 18 to 30-year-olds are so technology dependent. I just want to provide a space where people can connect with each other face to face, with the small group of people, and connect with people. And honestly, it speaks for itself. If you come to an event, you can come along if you want. You'll see that people leave it feeling so much better than when they first arrived. Instead of me being like, okay, how can I charge, when they get there, how can I sell more to them to get more money out of them,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about being wholesome. What does
Mm.
that mean?
I think wholesome means being down to earth. I think people are sold. I studied marketing. I did my bachelor's degree in marketing, and I also ran a marketing agency. So,
Yes.
so I've seen how businesses will often, inflate things, or make things better than they seem, or get you to be sold on an idea that isn't truly authentic. And I just wanted to be real with people. I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to be down to earth. I wanted to strip all the flashy lights and all this sort of exaggerate. I didn't want to exaggerate things. I thought, we're
Yeah.
literally going to get people together, we're going to shoot it on film cameras, we're going to make the lighting ambient and candle lit, nothing major. The setup's nothing major. You can buy a few candles from IKEA and do it yourself, but because it focuses on the reason why I'm doing it, and that's people are the focus,
Yeah.
not the said activity or whatever we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I'm glad it's going so well for you. What kind of locations are you holding these events at then?
Yeah, so we started in Glasgow about a year ago, honestly, in the basement of a cafe, and it was a little bit sketchy. We had to walk past some knives in the kitchen and things. And I used to have a sign that says "Come to the basement." It was just me sitting in the basement. And so since then we've upgraded our locations a little bit, and we use cafe spaces and that are not otherwise being used. We're in Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, Manchester, and Birmingham. And our first Birmingham event is actually this week, so
Great.
very exciting. And then we're gonna add Newcastle and Bristol to the mix as well,
Sure.
and Leeds next month. So yeah,
Brilliant. Oh, well done. Great.
yeah,
Well, I'd love to explore the leadership lessons you are learning and that you wish you had learned earlier.
yeah,
Before we said press records, you mentioned that you're kind of in the throes of learning these lessons, and that's totally fine. I think actually many of our leaders, however old or experienced they are, they'd be very similar. What are the three? What's the top line of the three things, and then we can explore the
yeah.
detail.
I would say it was hard to come up with three because I feel like I've learned so many in the past 5 years. From going to, I remember selling the hot chocolate and and like not even knowing that we had to. Someone said, "What are your wholesale prices?" And I was thinking, "What's a wholesale price?" Well, I had to
Right,
Google what a wholesale price was. So
right,
I've definitely learned a lot in terms of the nose in every industry. But the top three leadership lessons I would say is the first one would be to not wait to encourage people. I would say when I started running a business or businesses, there was a complete lack of encouragement from other people. And that's a real shame when you're trying to build something, trying to start something. And it's really, really, I've realized how significant it is to encourage other people, the people that work with you and for you, and also the people that we collaborate a lot with different brands like Fujifilm and Gales, the bakery in London,
yes,
and to be really enthusiastic and encouraging and supportive, I think is a lesson which I have really understood the importance of. And it's because people need so very little encouragement to be able to do that side hustle, or for example, when you encourage people and you're enthusiastic and you take an interest in them, they will sort you out. They will, I remember at Fujifilm when we had an event there, I was like I was trying to be really enthusiastic and really encouraging and really, trying to speak to all the employees there. Hey, how's it going? And because of that, they went extra lengths to make the space work, to
sure,
make the collaboration work. And instead of doing one event, I honestly believe if we weren't so enthusiastic and kind and encouraging, that we wouldn't have. We did 4 events with them, and it
yeah,
really kickstarted Fellow Humans in London. And since then, we've sold out every single time for 8 months straight in London. So
wow,
yeah, I would say that's the first
great.
lesson. Yeah, definitely.
Let's hear the other two
The other
headlines. Yeah,
two, I would say, is say yes to everything, and that doesn't mean that you promise, to do everything, or someone says, "Do you want to do it?" In my case, "Do you want to do an event? Let's collab," and you're like, "Yes, let's do it." But being open to leave everything on the table. And I think you never really know what connections you'll need in the future. And the kind of, for example, this is a small example. We had an event in Glasgow. We didn't have enough chairs, okay? And it's a bit of an issue when you've got like 50 people coming to an event, you don't have enough chairs, you're missing about 20 chairs. And because we a brand reached out to us and they wanted to collaborate, but it wasn't the right timing, but we said yes, let's maybe see. We could have said no, it wasn't the right vibe, and it wasn't really the right for us at the time. We messaged them and they just sorted us out with chairs, they sorted us out with drinks, they sorted us out with snacks. And it was just unbelievable because they were like, okay, we want to get on board with you, you want to get on board with us. So yeah, I think leaving everything on the table is really, really important, and saying yes to things. Like actually Fujifilm, we were going to say no to them because our events are very intimate and candlelit and things, and they wanted us to use their store in Covent Garden in London, and we
Right.
were thinking, well, it's not, doesn't really match our brand. And then I was thinking, what are you doing, Jared? Say yes to it. And it was, it was paramount to the success of Fellow Humans in London. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say the second thing is say yes to things and leave things on the table because you might come back to it later.
Got it. And your third one?
My third one is um, be completely authentic. And I know that's kind of vague, but I think there, if you just copy everyone, if you copy the big brands, and in the case of Fellow Humans, we could copy a lot of brands that do sip and paints and do all these different activities that are very mainstream, and it would probably work. But when you really sit down and think, what value are you trying to add to people, and to the industry and also to just the general public, what value you're trying to add, I think that you just have to be completely authentic to what your values are, what the value that you want to create, and not just copy other people. And it's so easy to copy what other people are doing, but I think and it's been scary at times to be like, okay, we're going to do this event, or we're going to do plant-based hot chocolate, which is, not really been done before. Why don't we just do normal hot chocolate and make it bougie and whatever? Being authentic to what you really believe and what you really think will do wonders, and it's done wonders for me in the three businesses that I've sort of created. So
Yeah. Okay. Those are great lessons. I love it. My mind's now racing a little bit, Jared, as I'm thinking about this idea of this point of impact over, I don't know whether you call it profit or whatever, but
yeah,
the commerce side of it, kind of the impact, and this last point about being authentic to your values. You clearly had a marketing business that I'm assuming that was connected to you in some way in terms
yeah.
of it coming an idea off the back of the first success that you've had, and then you've gone with this other thing. How did you know to kind of leave the marketing behind and pursue the Fellow Humans?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I expect there was some alignment to the marketing piece. Do you understand the nature of my
Yeah. Oh,
question?
I'll
Yeah,
tell you what.
yeah,
That's another lesson. I think you'll do things. This is why you have to follow. You have to be authentic and follow the values and sort of like what you really think. And the reason is because everything leads to another. So I'll explain this really quickly. I started the hot chocolate about 4 years ago. Okay, I just wanted to start it. I was interested in food and drink. I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to be creative. So I started the hot chocolate. Had no idea what I was doing, but I thought, let's just go with it. Now, from the hot chocolate, I sold it in the end, but I gained so much experience. I first of all knew how the food and drink industry worked. Okay,
yeah,
and then second of all, and I also knew the lack of marketing that was, tailored to these small businesses, small food and drink brands that are trying to grow. And then second of all, I gained about 40 or 50 different cafe connections. So, one-on-one deep connections to
yes,
cafes in different cities around the UK. So you can probably see where this is going. Then
sure,
I started the marketing agency. I started the marketing agency because I saw a need for, the lack of marketing support that I got as a brand. So I thought I'm gonna specifically do need for food and drink brands that that need marketing support like I did. And
yes,
I was coming from a place where, hey, I was in this place, so I can help you. That went really well. I got more contacts in food and drink, started working in marketing for different brands. And the I think the reason is because I did Need and Fellow Humans at the same time. Um, and I started Fellow Humans and I just realized, hold on a minute, Fellow Humans is basically marketing. That's all. The success of it is essentially how good your marketing is. We've
yes,
done 91 events. We've sold out 90 times, which is unbelievable. And the success of it has been predominantly because the partnerships that we've had with food and drink brands. So every event is sponsored by a food and drink brand, whether that be like small artisan brands or Dash Water or you name it. There's loads of
Yeah.
different brands. We've worked with about 50 brands so far, and also running a marketing agency, you learn marketing in the real world and why brands want to collaborate with, say, Fellow Humans or any other brand. And so, you know, looking back, people were like, well, you started the hot chocolate and then you started the agency and then now you're doing Fellow Humans. Like, obviously things aren't working well because you've just jumped onto the next one. And I think that a lot of people forget that your your experience really does you the good, and Fellow Humans would not be as successful as it is right now without me starting the hot chocolate brand and the marketing agency.
Great.
And so I think that's, people think of it, oh, it's failed businesses, and I'm like, no, I sold one and the other one helped me make the other one successful. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why you
great.
have to really stick to authenticity and you stick to what you really think. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that story, and thank you for sharing it. It's caused me to reflect on some of the junctions in my own career. So I've stayed pretty much for the last 28 years in the same industry sector, but set up businesses and moved to become an employee. And each of those decisions, there's been a big learning experience that has helped, I think, govern what I do now and to help inform the where I focus the business today, knowing exactly what I get the most fulfillment from, for example, and ensuring that is having the right impact with the team, deciding to run my own entity rather than just being a one-man band. Having a business, I could easily be a freelance consultant, but actually building a team and finding enjoyment in that is something that really excites me. So yeah, I love hearing about your experiences there. That's great. Now I want to go back to this idea of enthusiasm and support, because I had some questions off the back of that piece. Like, where do you get your enthusiastic energy from? What's the source?
The source. The
secret source.
The secret.
Actually, no. Secret. I was talking source. SOU.
Yeah.
RC.
You call it secret source. Sauce if you want. But where does it come from? It comes from initially a book I read when I was 18, and I was unhappy with my life, and I was very self-centered, I would say,
right,
and materialistic actually. And I realized I was unhappy, and I saw these other people around me that seemed to sort of be happier. And I opened a book, I can't even remember what it's called, and it said, you will find that the true key to happiness is to labor for the happiness of others. And I thought, well, first of all, if that's true, right? And all I have to do to be, happy in life is to, be in the pursuit of other people's happiness, then I'm going to try it out. So that's what I did. I wrote down a list of everyone I knew. And I thought, and every day I thought, how can I help them? How can I serve them? How can I, really work for their happiness? And honestly, since that moment, it completely changed my life. It completely changed from me looking inward to looking outward. And I think a lot of the joy and enthusiasm and my love for life and love for creating things comes from the kind of, I guess, realization that first of all, we have only one life. And my favorite quote actually is this one. It says, when you came into this world, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice. And I really like that, because I've found that happiness comes from when you help other people. And that's the motivation for everything I do. That's the motivation for all three of the businesses. It was never about hot chocolate. It was never about marketing, and it was never about, making money with fellow humans. It was all about, how do I create something where I can make a difference in people's lives? And by doing that, when you not by thinking about it, but by actually doing it, that is where the enthusiasm and the joy comes. It just keeps on coming because you keep on helping people, and then you feel good about it, and then you feel like you're making a difference, and you've only got one life, and you feel like you're really making use of the life you've got.
I can feel that, Jared. You're like, it's coming across the airways here. I love it, and I want to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and just explore some more. Like, are you somebody that then has to, when you do one of these events, are you somebody that then has to go and recover, or does it feed you so you can just sustain that day after day? Like, how do you keep that kind of energy going?
Yeah. So I used to host all the events, and I started them in Glasgow, and I did about 30 in Glasgow, and then started London, and then Edinburgh, and I was doing London, Edinburgh, Manchester, and Glasgow, all 2 events a month. So it's a lot. It's like 8 or maybe 10. I used to do about 10 events a month and host all these events, and it really, you know what? Before, I would sort of dread it a little bit because I knew that it was just, I had to do a lot of small talk for about 2 hours. But when I was there, every time I'm there, and I've done round about probably 70. Now I get other people to host them.
Yes.
But it really just people just lift me. People just make me feel just like the joy in life. And I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. But when I'm around people, I'm very joyous. And I would say definitely it does take. That doesn't mean it doesn't take its toll on you.
Yeah.
After the events, I'm sometimes absolutely destroyed. Like I don't want to speak to anyone for a whole day. So, and I think this is the thing about work. The work you do, just because you love what you do doesn't mean, and you feel fulfilled by it, doesn't mean that it's not very hard. And people think, oh, you're Jared, you're a great people person. I'm thinking, yeah, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to expend so much energy, and we all have. I listened to a podcast by Stephen Bartlett and Jimmy Carr. He's a very intelligent guy, actually, and he says, Stephen Bartlett asked him. He said, "Well, why didn't you just work for Shell and do marketing?" And he said, "Well, we all have people to serve, and I just want to serve people on my own terms, rather than someone dictating what those terms are." And it's the same, I really resonated with it because I thought, you know what, I'm choosing this path of really, high performance, short term, 2 hours, let's go speaking to people and hosting them. But I'm really happy with it because we all have. I don't mind that. 7 to 9 p.m. on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah. How do you ensure, so you've started, obviously got to a stage where you're involving other hosts. How do you ensure that your hosts are able to maintain the same quality that you have created, and the enthusiasm and encouragement that you mentioned?
I think that's hard. It took me a long time to find people that were willing to. I originally I was looking for a Jared 2.0, another one of me, and I didn't find that, and I realized that people are different, and they have different skills and different ways with people, and there's gonna be no other Jared, that just doesn't exist, and so really encouragement. That's why I think encouragement is so important because if you just pay people to do a job and fulfill a task, they will not do it as well as if you give them encouragement and enthusiasm and praise for what they're doing. And I think the good thing is people love what fellow humans is and what is created, and they're passionate about it because it's impact first. And so it's hard sometimes, like turning people away. I've had some people where I've said, hey, you can let's host in Manchester, for example. And they've hosted one event, and I've sort of said to them, "Thank you so much, but you know, we need hosts that are, that are this, and I really value you, but and
Yeah.
so it's hard to have those conversations, but it's really important to like continue to encourage and enthuse them rather than being
Encourage
like,
them to use their skills and talents in a different way.
yeah, exactly,
And
yeah,
I guess that's part of that. That's the shadow side to the saying yes to keeping doors open is that
yeah,
actually you also have to say what I'm hearing there. There's occasions you do have to say no
yeah,
to maintain the encouragement and the authenticity of your brand.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I have a few people that work for me, or have worked for me in the past, and it's been because Fellow Humans is so down to earth and so authentic. The work relationship can be very, people are your similar age. I've not got anyone that works for me that's above 30, and so
Yeah.
quite often and actually they're older than me, sorry, the people that work for
Sure.
me. So it's kind of, you really have to be kind but also firm, and
Yes.
that's a hard skill to learn,
Yeah.
especially when they're older than you. It reminds me of, I used to be a referee, football referee, and I used to referee people older than me, and honestly, the amount of abuse you got
Right.
was terrible until you gain their respect by speaking to them at the start, by being really friendly, by being, a bit jokey. And I think it's the same in business. I think you have to be really friendly, really jokey at the start, but you know, make sure when you're
Have
on
a
the pitch,
hard edge.
exactly, that
Yeah.
they
You
know.
know your boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh, that's great, Jared. I'm so pleased for you, and I'm glad it's going so well. As you look ahead, what are you seeing? What are you seeing in the future?
Yeah, it's been an interesting sort of journey from going to food and drink to going to in-person events. And as I said at the start, Fellow Humans was originally a passion project that turned into a business because of the demand for it. And we've had thousands of people at events now. The vision for Fellow Humans is honestly to increase its impact. Some people say that it should be a charity, and I say no, no, no. There's not a lot of charities that make, all the big brands in the world. They make the biggest of impacts, and so I think we're just going to expand into new cities. So we'll hopefully be in 7 by next month, at least 12 by the end of the year in the UK, and then we're going to expand into Europe as well, and
Right.
start running events in Europe and collaborating with bigger brands, because so that we can get a bigger reach. And with that, with Fellow Humans, and then also I possibly might be starting an olive oil company. So that
Okay.
is back into
We'll invite you back to talk about that one
exactly,
another time. I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Right.
But I
That's great.
really think that yeah, doing, just I'm riding a wave, Simon. I'm riding a wave, and I'm gonna see how long I'm riding that wave for. And I think, to anyone listening, that's exactly what they should do. I think we often look at 5-year plans and 10-year plans, and they're good goals to have, but I think ride waves as long as they go, and then you'll see, as I've spoke about before, the hot chocolate to the marketing to Fellow Humans, that you might be in a different place in 2 years' time, but it will be for your
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
if you're doing it for the right reasons.
You will indeed. Talk to me a little bit more about this idea of community. It sounds like you've been able to get into what makes the fabric of that. What is the fabric of a thriving community from your perspective?
Yeah. Oh, a fabric of a thriving community. I think, you'll see communities popping up right now. Run clubs are a form of community. I mean, every city's got about 100 run clubs, or maybe 1,000 if they're
Yeah.
bigger cities. I think people want to feel a sense of belonging, and I have. There's good and bad things about communities. Some of them are very cliquey,
Yeah.
and they're very sort of not always welcome. And I think that every community should be in the spirit of welcoming everyone. and then people choose whether they want to stay. And I think a lot of communities are sort of have these like ghetto. A lot of them. The reason I started Fellow Humans actually is because there's a lot of ghetto only sort of groups, and they're great. They're great. You know, I wanted to go to some of them, but unfortunately I can't. And so I started Fellow Humans because it wants to be open to all. So the fabric of a great community is that it is welcome to all, and that people, you know, if they don't feel like it's the right vibe or right sort of people for them, then they choose, they make the choice rather than the community making the choice.
Yeah.
I think as well, consistency. We only do 2 events a month per city. Um, and the reason we don't do more is because if we were to do more, people would be like, "Oh, we're gonna come another time. We'll go,"
Sure.
and then they just don't. There has to be a sense of urgency in building communities, and that's not saying no to people. That's just making the meetups, the community when they meet in person, that give them a sense of urgency. People need a reason to feel like they need to go to something. And then honestly, I think people over profit. I think that's, you know, the money comes, and it's funny. I speak to people my age, and they're like, "Oh, it's really cool what you're doing," and then, you know, I speak to people in their 40s and 50s, and quite often they're like, "So, do you make money with this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a business, you know." but I'm so focused on people that I think that's the priority, you know. And it's easy to lose that. Sometimes I wish I was in my infancy in the basement of a cafe with 20 people, and not having, you know, 5 cities and about 12 to 15 events a month, you know.
Yeah.
But I think you just have to remind yourself why you're doing things, and people see that. People really do see that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's really cool. And you mentioned earlier I should come along to one. My sense, I'm 53. So is Fellow Humans, am I welcome?
Look,
Would I belong? Would I belong?
Everyone is welcome, Simon. It's whether you think you, when you turn up, if you're comfortable with that. You know, this
What
is
is the vibe? What's the vibe? Like,
what is
what
the vibe?
if I walked into one of these events? What am I
Yeah.
seeing? What am I
So the
observing?
general kind of you know, there's an age guide which is 18 to 35. The reason is because generally speaking, people connect better with people that are in a similar age bracket. However, that's not true always. So, and we've had people of many different ages come to events. The vibe is, you come in, we'll do a little. There'll be some soft drinks there. You'll get a name badge with Simon on it. Maybe a little smiley face if you're feeling, you know, a bit more optimistic that day. And then people will just be chatting. Everyone is there. The great thing is everyone there is to meet people. Like literally, that's why people come. There's normally an activity on the second hour, but we'll start the event off by doing like an icebreaker. We'll give everyone a card with a question on it. It might say, "What do my shoes tell you about me?" or "How many speeding tickets do you think I've got in my life?" You know, whatever. And we'll do like a musical chairs kind of thing, but, you know, standing, I guess, musical statues. We'll play music. People will go around. They'll stop. When the music stops, they'll turn to the person closest to them. They'll have a conversation, and we do that for about 40 minutes. So it's quite a long time. But it's people's favorite part by far, and we've done it like 90 times. And then we'll do an activity the second hour, which could be anything. Could be craft wise, could be whatever. And then people leave. We give them something to give to someone else at the end, because we're all about, you know, plus it's good word of mouth as well, good marketing. Sure. But yeah, so you know, it's for everyone that wants to come. You know, I just give people a heads up that most people are 18 to 35. But if you want to come along, then please do.
Well, I wouldn't want to cramp anybody's style. It sounds fantastic. My children would enjoy it very much, I'm sure. But and I'm pleased that you're getting so much traction and momentum on it as well. As you go into Europe, I think that's an exciting opportunity there to break into different parts of the continent. So yeah, exciting times. And please, you've got so much interest in, or different avenues as well. And this olive oil, as I say, I would be interested to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah.
And see where that goes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, what you've given some advice, but maybe just to consolidate that into a paragraph, perhaps, or a sentence. If someone is looking to break out of employment into their, well, that sounds like a prison, doesn't it? Sorry, I don't want to make it sound like that.
It is. No,
if someone wants to take that entrepreneurial approach like you have, what piece of advice would you give?
Start small. A lot of people think starting a business or starting a side hustle or starting a passion project that you have to have, lots of capital, lots of money in the bank. And, with certain ideas, you might need a bit more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But every single business that I've started with probably about £100. Yeah. And I've bought a domain and, a website and maybe a few packaging things. And I think if you don't start, you'll never do it. You'll never do it. And all the best, there's loads of people that have had my idea before probably, but no one went and started it. And it's funny the amount of people that have copied me now. There's about, honestly, it's ridiculous. There's about 30 at least that I've found that follow fellow humans that know me personally that have started something similar. And I just think you got to start, just whether that be a small tiny step of buying a website domain or telling a friend about what you're doing. If you don't start, you won't get anywhere, honestly. And I really think that is invaluable. That's valuable advice for people, because I think a lot of people wait on ideas. And so if you're listening to this and you are waiting on an idea, you're waiting for the perfect opportunity to start whatever you're thinking of, start it today. Honestly, start it today with that little bit of £20, whatever you have, and you'll thank me later for telling you that, because you really, really do not know what will come of what you start doing. And it might not work well. I've had businesses that have went like this that we've not spoke about. And you know what? I lost £100 in 40 hours of my time, but I learned from that. And yeah, I would say that's probably the best advice I can give.
Great, get started.
Yeah,
great. I love that. Thank you, Jared. And how will people find you on social media or whatever?
Yeah, so if you type in fellow humans, you'll find fellow humans in Google, on Instagram, on TikTok, all the socials. And then on LinkedIn, if you just type in Jared Keir, Keir, I don't know if Keir Starmer's, anyway, let's not make that a comparison. But yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. I'm always happy to help, especially for those listening that are 18 to 30 or 35 and they want to start something. We're in this together, and I'm happy to impart my connections and wisdom that I've gained. So yeah.
Good man. Thanks, Jared. It's been a real pleasure to have you around our virtual table, and maybe one day I'll come to one of your events. And,
what?
I'm just concerned I'm going to kind of ruin the vibe, kind of the old guy who turns up. It's like
no.
Yeah,
Honestly, I can just see you there right now, Simon. I can see that. We're having our 100th event in London at some point, so look out for that on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Honestly,
thanks,
really
Jared. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us at the After Dinner Leadership Table, and trust that you've got good value from listening to this episode. Thanks for being here. One question for you. The question is, so what? What will you do with what you've just heard? And here's a few suggestions. Number 1, lead with more purpose. 2, mentor with patience. 3, share with pride. You think of anyone who you know that would benefit from listening to what you've just heard, that would help them to be a better leader today or in the future. Please share, like, subscribe. It helps other people to consume the content. And we wish you all the very best of success. And please listen again to another After Dinner Leadership conversation.